Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another video today. So today, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite cards from Phyrexia All Will Be One. So a few disclaimers. So one, technically there's more than 5, and you'll see why in a second, because we do have one honorable mention. Well, I say honorable. And then the second thing is, there's not really any specific format. These are cards that I just would like to play. Most of which would be in Pioneer, some of them potentially Modern, some of them Commander. These are just cards that I think are going to be fun, and I'm really excited to be able to play them. So, as always, let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite cards from Phyrexia? Do you like my list? Do you hate my list? Let me know in the comments what you think. So, alright, so we're going to hop right into it here. So, our honorable mention is Tyranax Rex. So, for those who have not watched my Tyranax Rex video. I've actually made 2 videos about Tyranax Rex. I think this card is awesome. It is my favorite card in the set, and it's probably going to end up being one of my favorite cards in Magic. This is technically the true number 1 for my personal list, but I wanted to talk about some other cards today, so I'm not going to go super into detail with Tyranax Rex, but it is 4 mana, green, for an 8/8, Phyrexian Dinosaur. This spell can't be countered. Trample, Ward 4, and Haste with Toxic 4. It hits like a truck, deals poison counters, and gets rid of your opponents, essentially. So the card is amazing. I love Tyranax Rex, but we're going to be moving on to the actual list here. So number 5 is going to be Tyyar's Stand. So I'm very excited about this card. So 1 green and X instant. Target creature you control gets +X/+X and gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. I think this card is awesome for a couple reasons. So one, I also put Primal Might next to it, because this is kind of what this card reminds me of. Obviously Primal Might, 1 green and X sorcery, gets a creature XX till end of turn, then it fights a creature. It's almost a combination of like a protection spell and Primal Might, and we essentially got Tyyar's Stand. So hexproof and indestructible is incredible. We've had cards in the past that are 1 green and give like +2/+2 hexproof, or 1/1 counter hexproof. And we've had cards that do 1 green and give indestructible. But Tyyar's Stand is probably the best one out of all of them if you're playing a creature heavy deck. Notice it is only target creature. So for instance, like Tamiyo's Safekeeping, I wish I had popped that up, but Tamiyo's Safekeeping gives a permanent protection, gives it hexproof and indestructible. But this is great for creatures because you can also just, if you have a bunch of floating mana, you just pump it into it, make it giant, and it has hexproof and indestructible. So Tyyar's Stand is awesome. I really like this card. I'm going to play it in a number of lists. Also, I feel like I mentioned this with so many cards, but you can play this in Obosh lists in Pioneer, which is awesome. So I'm really excited for Tyyar's Stand. I think this card is going to be a great sideboard card and mainboard playable for sure for Standard. So number 4, the Eternal Wanderer. So I am excited for this card, but I'm really not, because I do not want to play against it with my aggro decks. So 5 loyalty, 4 white, legendary planeswalker. No more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat. +1, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. 0 is create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike. -4, for each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. So, wow. It's a 6 mana walker that can defend itself, can give you potential value depending on the cards you're playing. Exiling an artifact or creature. There's a lot of great creatures in white or artifacts that haven't entered the battlefield. You can play other cards that trigger off of entering the battlefield, those kind of effects. And then obviously the -4 is a board wipe. Essentially, they keep their worst creature realistically and lose everything else. So, and it still survives after the -4, which is incredible. Also kind of cool with Elishnorn, because the new Elishnorn is 5 mana, and it has the Panharmonicon ability, where if you have a permanent entering the battlefield, it triggers an additional time. So, which is pretty great with the Eternal Wanderer. You can flicker something, and then you'd get you get 2 triggers off of it, which is awesome. So, I think the Eternal Wanderer is awesome. I think it's going to be great in Standard. I think it's going to be great in Pioneer, and I think it's going to be awesome in Commander. If you want to put this in a Commander deck, what kind of Commander deck you'd want to put this in? Probably anything with Blink, most likely. If you're playing any kind of like control-y like list, you'd probably want to play this. Overall, the Eternal Wanderer is a very, very good Planeswalker in this set, and I'm excited to play it, but not play against it. So this card is going to be very cool to play. So number 3, I chose Mindsplice Apparatus. 3 and a blue artifact, flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, put an oil counter on Mindsplice Apparatus. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mindsplice Apparatus. So, I thought about this card for a while, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. The fact that it has flash is amazing. If it didn't have flash, I think this card would be not that great, but having flash, being able to, you know, like, especially if you're playing like a control deck, let's say you're playing a blue-white control list in Pioneer, this could be very interesting because, you know, you're holding up counter spells or, you know, hold up whatever, then you just end step, flash this in at your upkeep. Now, all your instant sorceries cost 1 less, then they're 2 less, then they're 3 less. So, you know, like if you're playing like Sphinx's Revelation, your board wipes, if you're playing like cantrips, they're all going to cost less. And in like Commander, for instance, something like this is huge. Obviously, blue is a very, very great color for artifact synergies. You're playing a lot of instants and sorceries if you're in blue, most likely. So everything just costs less. You don't even have to do proliferate shenanigans. I think this card could just be good on its own. So, Mindsplice Apparatus, I think this card is going to be very fun to play. I'm really excited for it in this upcoming set. So, number 2, I wasn't sure how to label this exactly, so I decided to label it as the 4-mana horrors. So, obviously we have Phyrexian Obliterator, the reprint, and Phyrexian Vindicator, the new card. So, Phyrexian Obliterator is a 5/5 for black, 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 black. Phyrexian Horror with Trample. Whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. And then we have Phyrexian Vindicator, which is a 5/5 for white, 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 white with flying. If damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent that damage. When damage is prevented this way, Phyrexian Vindicator deals that much damage to any other target. So, wow, powerful cards. So, again, Phyrexian Obliterator is a reprint. There's very good mono black stuff to do in Standard currently. I think that Obliterator probably will... There'll be some number that fits in there. Shieldred is arguably the better black 4-drop in Standard right now. But it is an awesome reprint. It's kind of... One thing I've been talking about for a long time for Pioneer is I've been wanting us to get like old modern cards that don't really have a place in the format anymore and bring them to Pioneer. And that's kind of what they've been doing the last couple years. And Phyrexian Obliterator is one of the new examples of that. Phyrexian Vindicator obviously is the white counterpart to it. These are both very good cards, but it's one of those cards where, like, what do you play it in exactly? Phyrexian Vindicator, I know that there is a mono white Devotion Pioneer deck going around. This makes a pretty fair argument to play it. I mean, if you're not playing... And this is the issue with Phyrexian Vindicator. Damage base removal does not beat this card. The only way to answer this is with, like, Doomblade effects, like Destroy Target Creature, which is also the same way with Phyrexian Obliterator. You can't Soul Sear it for 5. If you do it, you're sacrificing 5 permanents. I mean, like, that's not a winning battle. So the fact that essentially 2 colors of the color pie's removal is irrelevant against these cards, which is very good. So overall, I think these cards are going to see some play here and there. Obviously, it's an amazing kitchen table card. If you can fit these in a Commander deck, please do. I mean, these cards are nasty to play in Commander. I definitely am going to be building a list myself with Phyrexian Vindicator. What that list is going to look like, I'm not quite sure yet, but I will be building something with it, and I'm very excited that Obliterator is returning and that they decided to make Vindicator. Why couldn't they have made a green card in this cycle? I don't know. Or a red one, but, you know, maybe in the next Phyrexia set a couple years from now we'll get more. So we'll have to see. So, number one. What is my number one card that I'm excited for in this next set? And that is Solphim Mayhem Dominus. So this card is awesome. So 2 red for a 5/4 legendary creature, Phyrexian Horror. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or permanent, it deals double that damage. And then 1 in Phyrexian Red, which means you can pay a red or 2 life. Discard 2 cards, put an indestructible counter on Solphim. So I put a card next to it that is somewhat similar, Torbrand. So Torbrand's a 2/4 for red 1. If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent, it deals that much damage plus 2. So they play a very similar role. They're 4 mana, like especially for like red decks and modern and potentially So for standard and potentially Pioneer, it's a great curve topper. The only difference is Solphim is non-combat damage, so your creatures don't get that plus 2 effect. But you know, it also goes a little bit different. Now your lightning strikes, for instance, are doing 6 instead of 5. So it's a very interesting counterpoint. Which one is technically better? If you're dealing small chunks, Torbrand is better. But if you're doing probably anything above 2 damage or 3 damage, Solphim is probably going to be better. Is it better than Torbrand? Again, I'm not sure. I know actually a good friend of mine is actually building he actually built a mono red devotion list which plays Torbrand in it, and I'm sure that list probably can play Solphim or will play both. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to him about it, honestly. But I think Solphim can play a very interesting role. So I'm not sure. I think this card's going to be very cool. In Commander, this thing is probably nasty. I mean, I'm trying to think of what you could do with Solphim in Commander. I mean, there's got to be like some big like mass, you know, deals X damage to each opponent in red. There has to be something. Even not even just in red. There's got to be some really silly things like big black spell or something that deals damage to each opponent based on the cards in their hand or something, and then it doubles. I'm sure there's probably some really silly things you can do with Solphim in Commander. I guarantee it. So that is my list of my top 5 favorite cards that are currently coming in Phyrexia All Will Be One. As the day of this release of this video coming out, Phyrexia has not been released yet. The pre-release is just right around the corner. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite card from the set? What's your top 5? Do you like my top 5? Do you think it's just ridiculous? Some Gruul Mage doesn't know what he's talking about? Let me know in the comments. This will most likely be my last Phyrexia All Will Be One video. For everybody who's kept up with the last couple, I do appreciate you for watching. And that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for checking out my list. I'll see you in the next video.